it's Rob and welcome to Axel's Garage. Today we're back in the garage working on our garage and shop playlist or series, whatever you might call it, but it's a bunch of videos that we've been doing every time we do some work inside the shop or inside the garage to try to make it a little more functional. You saw last week or a couple weeks ago we put this aluminum diamond plate backsplash all around this little kitchenette area we put in the garage, and pretty much what we did was we took some old kitchen cabinets that we had in the basement from an old home renovation. We bought a couple on Craigslist that closely matched to get enough to fill in the right thing. We took this little room here and we made kind of a tool room, clean workroom area kind of with countertops, and we left off, we didn't have any countertops. So I did the real easy one first, which is the straight one that goes into the wall, and now I have to do the return behind me, and that's what you have to cut, and everything, you know, of course, isn't going to be square and line up because we just kind of threw it all together. So you got to cut and kind of sand some edges and get it to fit in good, and we'll show you how we do the harder of the two countertops and then finish them off and mount them in, and that's what we're going to get to today. The diamond plate came out real nice. A lot of people sent a couple emails about the diamond plate, what the actual material I used. It's 1/8 inch aluminum diamond plate. It's not crazy money because it's 1/8 inch and it's real thin, and it's not hard to put up because it's so thin. It drills, it's soft aluminum, it drills through real easy, and it looks nice, easy to keep clean. What we also added to it was a receptacle strip, a 20 amp strip that gives us, I don't know, shoot, there's got to be probably 20 different receptacles, which would be great because we'll always have one in front of where we're working. So for this little tool area, it'll work out nice. But I'll move the camera, we'll take some measurements, and we'll get working on that last piece of countertop so we can start putting this to good use. Okay, what we have here is the top of our cabinets. All right, and then we took some 2x3s and we screwed them into the studs along the wall so that we have a good firm mounting place for our countertops. We're not doing a countertop that's completely with all hidden fasteners like you would do in a kitchen or a bathroom or something like that. This is just to be functional, to put together pretty easy. We're looking for it to look halfway decent, but also be easy as well. We will screw them from underneath in the front where we can get at them. These are real, you know, cheapo assemble at home cabinets. So it's not like it's not the best circumstances, what I should say, but it's a garage. And what we tried to do with doing this garage makeover is use things that we already had laying around the house for the most part, which is screws, fasteners, receptacles, any of the stuff, even paints and waxes and stains and things like that. We all use stuff that we had in the basement or stored away in a storage cabinet somewhere in the garage that probably would have gotten thrown away over the years. We're using all that stuff to try to keep the cost down on doing the garage makeover, and I'd rather take that extra money and throw it into some of the car projects we've been doing, the Jeep or some of the other things that we've been working on in the garage. So this is a real good way. The only thing we really had to buy for this particular project is the wood itself, because we didn't have good, clean, sanded plywood. So what we used is a hardwood sanded plywood from Home Depot. It wasn't, you know, like the birch one, it wasn't the oak one, it wasn't any particular hardwood. It just said hardwood sanded plywood. It's a real nice finish on it. The plywood's not junky. I really wanted to use like a BC sanded, which is more of a sheathing grade with one side sanded, but they were so warped and crappy. For the extra $10, we went for the real good plywood or the medium good plywood, and the plywood's nice, it's flat, it's not warped, it sands up real nice, and it looks good when you're done. So what we did here was take some measurements, took our sheet of plywood, brought it over to the table saw, cut it out, realized that none of our corners here now are square because this wall and this wall is sort of out a little, this wall sticking out is a little bit out, so you sort of gotta finagle where you want to have a gap. I'd rather have a gap against that wall there, which is really not going to be in the main working area. Right here, and where the two of them come together, I'd like them to be as tight as possible, but they don't have to be perfect like a kitchen countertop. You know, if they're not, it's a workshop. If they're not absolutely perfect, no big deal. In the back, you know, the walls can be a little bit wavy. This is a wood studded wall. It's a cinder block structure that we're working in. The wall behind here is studded with wood, and the reason why it was studded out with wood was so that we could hang cabinets and shelves and heavy stuff. This wall on this side is cinder block also, but it was studded out with metal, and it was the small metal studs. They're almost like they're smaller than 2x3, and the reason why that was done was to get the sheetrock as tight to that cinder block as possible, because we don't have that extra width. We do have the depth, and we already use 2x4s here and on this this interior wall to give us good mounting points for things. So we'll measure it up. We'll take that wood over to the table saw. We gotta fit one in first, and then cut another one identical to that first one, because we want to have a double layer of that 3/4 plywood to give us an 1.5 inch countertop when we're all done. So watch along, we'll speed the camera up, and I'll get this wood cut and fitted, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, so what we have here is our 2 pieces of plywood. All right, that's the back, and they're pretty much laying on the sawhorses as we'd be looking at them on the cabinet. So what our important ends are this side here. We want this to be nice and smooth, and the front side you want to be nice and smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to line them up and get them as close as we can get them, so that we really don't feel any gap on our fingers. Then we're going to clamp them with clamps so that we can screw them together and keep them secure. Okay, so what we have now, it's screwed together, the edges are nice. I gave it a test fit. I'm still a little tight up in this corner up here, so I'm going to hit it with the random operable pad sander, and I'll use about a 220 grit paper on it just to give it a nice finish. I'll go around the edges, make sure the edges are nice and even. You really can't feel too much of a lip between the 2 pieces on the front edge here, but I'll hit it with the sander, make it nice, and I'll also, the edge that's going to be facing me, I'll also soften that edge just a little bit so I don't have that sharp edge facing me. Less of a chance of it starting to chip a flake too if you soften that edge a little bit. Up there in the corner, I'll sand it along the side a little heavier, and I'll do that so that when I slide it in, I can get it to fit in a little bit better and make that seam a little bit tighter. Okay, so what we did was we spent some time sanding. The more time you could spend sanding, the better. I used 220 on a palm sander, and I hit those edges pretty good. I hit that far edge where it's tight to sort of bring that other seam in. I hit that real good. I stood with the 220, probably better off doing that far edge where I'm trying to trim some material off with a belt sander, like you would do on a door or something like that. But I do have a belt sander, but I don't have a belt for the belt sander. So I'm keeping with my theme of trying to keep the cost down to do this little garage makeover. I just used the palm sander. And it was only about a 32nd of an inch that I had to get off to make this seam sort of tighten up a little bit. And I think I got that. I gave it a test fit. It looks pretty good. Okay, so now what do we do with this sanded wood? Wipe it down, get all that, blow it off, and get all that sanding dust off of it, and stain it. I like to go 2 coats of stain. I'm pretty much staining it so that the stain absorbs into the wood, and then I'll put some polyurethane or some kind of urethane over it just for some durability purposes. I don't really care about the color, so what I did was I hit the basement storage cabinet, old stain that I probably would have thrown away and never used again. I actually had some gel stain, which I hate gel stain. We used it because we bought some doors that were fiberglass, and we had to stain the fiberglass, and the gel stain actually kind of gives you, the fiberglass has like a wood grain in it. Some of those composite doors that you buy have like a wood grain in it. Well, the gel stain, when you paint it on with a brush, the brush marks in that wood grain texture that they have on them actually makes it look really good like wood. The problem is it knocks off like paint, so you got to put a couple of good coats of clear on top of it. So I had this can of gel stain left over. I'm never going to use it for anything else because I decided that I don't like those doors, number one, so I'm not going to buy them anymore if I have to replace a door. And I don't like the gel stain, number two, on those doors because it actually scrapes off easy, almost chips off like paint does. But what the gel stain will do is stain wood. It's not going to give you that real penetrating stain look like a regular stain will, but keeping in my theme where we're going to use our old shit up and throw it away, I'm going to use the gel stain. So what I'll do is I'll take a brush, I'll brush it on, let it sit for about 5 minutes, wipe it off with a rag, and then I'll let it sit for 15 minutes or so, and then I'll put a second application on, brush it on nice and heavy again, let it soak in, and then I'll wipe the excess off with a rag and I'll let it dry overnight. So I'm going to bang the stain out now, and then hopefully tomorrow I'll catch you up and we'll put the poly on it. And of course, the poly that I'm using is a poly that was on the shelf, so I don't know if it's the right poly, but it actually looks pretty good on that one there, and that's going to get 3 coats. So we'll go over that. Right now we'll do the stain, wash along, and then I'll catch up with you tomorrow, and we'll get some of the rest of this done. So now a day has passed and we got our crappy gel stain dry. It darkened up the wood a little bit. You'll see when I turn the camera back down to the wood. I wiped it off to make sure any residual dust floating around in the air isn't on there, and I'm going to put a coat of polyurethane. They say on the can, it's actually not polyurethane that I'm using because, again, keeping with the theme, I went downstairs in the basement, I got a can of old spa urethane that says it's for interior, exterior use. I don't know what spa urethane is. I didn't Google it. I probably could have, should have, but didn't. And I'll put a thin coat of that on with a brush, let it dry. It says 6 hours. It's a little chilly. I got the heat up in the garage to about 55 degrees or so. But I'll put a coat on, let it dry overnight, and then I will sand it with 220, and I'll put another coat, second coat on it, and I'll sand it with 220, and then I'll install the countertop in that back corner there, and I'll show you how I do that once we get to the drying phase. So now watch along while I put the polyurethane on, and I'll catch up with you again as I install it. so we got 2 coats of clear on it, sanded in between the coats, and I just did another final sanding. It did dull the finish, but we're going to put a 3rd coat on once everything is installed. So we're going to get it all installed, everything cleaned off. We're going to give it one good final sanding while it's installed, and then we're going to come around with a nice coat of clear on it. Just be real careful not to get any dust in it or brush marks or anything, because it's not going to be sanded again after that. So it did dull a little bit, but I got a nice smooth finish. Perfect for a garage workbench. I could probably leave it like this. You know, anybody who works on cars or does stuff around your house that isn't a professional at it, a lot of times you realize that you're doing stuff that nobody's ever going to see or ever going to notice except for you. And you start to try to be a perfectionist when you really don't need to, because it's going to look good when it's installed and nobody's going to notice unless you point out any imperfections. So I don't want to get carried away with this. This wasn't supposed to be an extended process. I just want to get these countertops in so I could organize this new part of my garage shop. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put it in place. We're going to get it tight in that seam. I did put some cleats, screwed them into the wall in the back, and we're going to screw the countertop down instead of up, only in the back, just maybe 3 screws in the back, because this will get a little bit of abuse. So I want to have a real good anchor point in the back. In the front, we'll screw it from underneath like you would on a normal countertop, so that you don't see the screws in the front. The ones in the back, like I said, we're going to drill a pilot hole with a countersink bit, get those screws to drop just below the surface so that when we clear it for the final time, it'll all look real nice. And you know, once we start putting stuff on the workbench, charges and solvents and stuff like that, whatever you fill your workbench up with, you're never even going to notice those screws in. That's it. Got the 3rd coat on, laid it on nice. Really, you know, you got to get down there to see. Again, I'm probably doing more than I really need to for a garage shop workbench, trying to make sure I hit everything and everything looks nice and shiny, because this is going to get all screwed up in no time. So that's it for this episode. Got the countertop down. We'll let this dry up good. Give it a couple days to really harden up before we start putting stuff on it. The next installment, we're going to put another power strip like you see over here on the far wall there, and we're going to possibly install, if I could find the right stuff, some LED lighting under the cabinets here so that we can light up our workspace. We'll have to mount a vise and a bench grinder on that side over there. We're going to put the bench grinder, and then over here we're going to put a small vise in the corner, because like I said, this isn't the workbench for our big heavy greasy stuff. That workbench is on the other end of the shop, and we'll be doing that one over in a few months, hopefully. During the winter time, we'll do that one over as well. So right now, we're just going to let it dry up, and the next video, hopefully in the garage series, we'll have us doing some lighting and installing some of the other things along the bench that we have here set up today. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, don't forget, hit that thumbs up button. It means a lot to us when you hit the thumbs up. It helps us out a lot, ranks our videos, and people get to see more of what we're doing. Please like, subscribe, and have a great day. That's it today from Axel's Garage.